Dreams. We're all born with them. Dreams of adventure, of finding a sense of purpose, meaning, of reaching our full potential. And wherever your dreams take you, your journey starts with UAC.
Hi everyone, my name's Jen. I work for the New South Wales Department of Education. I'm also a high school HISI teacher, and I've recently started a new role within the New South Wales Department of Education. I work as a Senior Education Officer in the Teach New South Wales team. So I'm here today basically to tell you all about what it's like working for the Department of Education in New South Wales, and also working in public schools, how to go about getting your approval to teach. And the most important thing is basically what you're going to get out of your university degree. If you do have any questions that kind of pop up along the way, you can also send an email to that email address on our screen. So I'll just jump straight into it. But firstly, I'd like to share a little bit about the New South Wales Department of Education and some of the opportunities that are available to teachers who decide to join our system once you graduate. So it is the largest education system in Australia. We have an enormous size and scale, and for that reason, it gives you lots of scope to work in lots of different settings. So you can work in like a selective school or an agricultural school, a hospital school, high schools, primary schools, early childhood centres, schools for specific purposes, just to name a few of them, but there are a lot more. So what's really significant is that even though we have over 100,000 employees who uphold the values of public education, we all hold the students at the centre of our decision making. We believe that every student should be known and should be valued and should be cared for. We also believe that if we are to prepare young people for rewarding lives in their future, in complex and really changing worlds, that we need to make sure that our workplace is also somewhere that's really, really inclusive. So making sure that all of our employees feel really welcome and feel valued as well. And that comes down to the really broad nature of our workforce. So the incredibly rich and diverse backgrounds of our employees, being like culturally diverse or linguistic or religious backgrounds. Everyone's so different, and it's a really true representation of kind of Australian society. So the New South Wales Department of Education has invested close to $8 billion in building and developing our schools for the future, which sounds like an enormous amount of money, because it is. And the future, obviously, in terms of the education revolution that we're going through right now, is something that is quite uncertain. So we're attempting essentially to educate students for jobs that might not even exist yet. So I think your generation, Generation Z, is known to have or is projected to have 6 careers in their lifetime, 50% of which don't exist yet, which is a pretty insane statistic to think about how we're supposed to teach everyone everything they need to know. So I think when the New South Wales public schools really focus on future-focused planning and technology and innovation, which can hopefully prepare students for the world of tomorrow that we are very uncertain about. So to support teacher education students when you go off to study to become the best teachers that you can be, the department offers a range of scholarship programs every year. So there are an enormous list of benefits for each of them. They all are a little bit different. I'll explain some of them a bit later on. But basically you can get financial contributions towards your study, so meaning you can get some money off your HECS debt. You can get paid to study, so whether that's like a semester fee, or you get some money at the end of your degree to help you, the end of your year to help you pay for books and things like that, and to help you along your studying. There's also things like guaranteed permanent positions when you finish. And there are some of our scholarships as well, which give you an appointment allowance. So meaning once you finish your studies and you're ready to go off and teach, that the department might give you some money for you to move away. If you wanted to know more about those applications, like I said, I will explain some of them, but there are lots. The applications open in the middle of the year, every single year. So we're about to come up to a big scholarship period. So you want to keep your eyes peeled. So the New South Wales Department of Education website, if you go on to Teach New South Wales and click on Get Paid to Study, you'll be able to subscribe, and then we'll let you know once the applications go live and what you need to do. So the support doesn't really stop there in terms of scholarships. Once you begin your teaching as either a permanent or as a temporary teacher, you'll receive beginning teacher support to help you develop as a teacher. So this happens at the start of your career. Once you get your first appointment, I got this funding, and I can't tell you how much it helped me with the beginning of my career. You're basically supported the whole time. So whether you need additional marking days or whether you need to complete some online training to help you with something that you might not know too much about when you first start, like marking or HSC, something like that, you basically get lots of funding to support you with that. And that also comes with a mentor, meaning that you can sit down with a colleague who might be more experienced than you and who you trust and who you can talk to and debrief to every week, and the department pays for that funding for you. So as you develop professionally, as you go on through your years of teaching, you'll find a number of career development opportunities. So don't think that teaching is just you start one day in the classroom and you work in the classroom for 30 years, because there's so many opportunities that you can do. So you progress if you want to follow a leadership path, you can progress down that way. So you could be either an assistant principal in a primary school, you could go and be a head teacher, for example, you can be a deputy principal or even a principal. We've got executive principal roles now. So executive principals earn like over $200,000 per annum. So it is a lot of money. And if you would be considering something like leadership, it'd be a great path to go down to. Alternatively, you can absolutely stay in the classroom if that's where your passion lies. So if you wanted to remain in the classroom, you can basically become like a lead teacher and follow an accreditation pathway, which means that your pay will increase, but you'll still remain in the classroom. These are just some of the things that make the New South Wales Department of Education such a great place to work. There's just so much opportunity. You can also leave and do a non-school based position like the job I do now, for example. So in addition to some of the professional benefits, the department's salary is pretty competitive, especially for beginning teachers once you first start out. So the first day you commence work as a casual teacher in a public school, you're able to earn $381 a day. So you can do that while you're still studying. So once you're in your final 2 semesters of uni, you can get your accreditation to teach, and you can go out into schools and earn $381. So it's definitely a good thing to do if you're working at McDonald's or something like that while you're at university and trying to save all your money up. If you wanted to work 2 days at a school, at your local school, and you went to university the other 3 days and you could work out how to balance it, it's a really, really good way to earn some extra money and get some extra experience before you graduate. So once you obtain your temporary position or a permanent position at the end of your final degree, you'll commence on a salary of $73,737 per year. So the salary doesn't include superannuation or annual leave loading, so that's not included in that sum. But you'll also receive mentoring support as well. So you get that experienced teachers mentorship program in the department to pay for the support. So once you complete your proficient accreditation, so that happens at the end of 2 years, your salary has a big jump, so it goes up to $88,935. And I'll tell you, it does make a really, really big difference. It is a really big jump after only 2 years, so you get rewarded for your 2 years of experience, and it keeps going up after that. So as I said, the progression doesn't end once you reach that proficient accreditation status. So it does keep going, or you can choose to go down lots of different pathways, like some of the ones that I mentioned before. So as well as the opportunity, it's not just financial, obviously, but you can make a real difference and help shape the lives of young people. And teaching is a career that really offers that progression and promotion opportunities. So even some of the things that aren't listed there, you could do like a year advisor, for example, which attracts a bit more money, but it is really great leadership opportunity if that would be something you're interested in doing. You can become a learning and support specialist. You could do something like becoming an assistant principal of a particular stage group. So there's lots of opportunities for you to develop as long as you are developing and improving your teaching practice the whole way through. So some of the positions that I mentioned earlier, their salary appears on the screen now. So you should be able to have a bit of a look at those kind of big sums that the leadership roles do attract. So now that you know some of the benefits of becoming a teacher with the Department of Education, you might be wondering how you go about becoming a teacher. So the first step is to decide what type of teacher that you would like to become, as obviously that's going to influence the course of study that you select. So you might be in a high school right now thinking, I really love little kids and I want to be a primary school teacher. And that's absolutely something that you can go and pursue. If, like me, you're in high school and you had your favorite subjects and all of your favorite subjects had your favorite teachers and you thought, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do exactly what they did because I want to make a difference, then that's something that you can pursue. So that's basically the first step. Something to consider when you are making that selection is to consider becoming a teacher in a high demand subject area or in a high demand location, as these teaching areas offer like lots of different scholarships and they also have increased employment prospects. So things like if you wanted to go out to a rural area, if you were willing to do something like that, then you could attract higher salaries, so you can get a salary bonus, you can progress in your career faster. If you wanted to do something like a high demand subject area like science, for example, I know physics is a big one right now, then that could be something really, really good to pursue if you're thinking, I like physics, or I enjoyed it when I was younger, I might like learning about it in the future, then that would be a really great path for you to go down because of all the scholarships and benefits that come with it. So once you've decided on the type of teacher that you want to become, then you need to make sure that you select the right teacher education course for you. So that is what UAC and all your preferences are going to help you with. So you can find a list of accredited teacher education programs on the Teach New South Wales webpage, and you can begin your research from there, thinking about what do the different universities offer me and which is the right one for me. You might decide going close to your home. You might decide that's a leading school for teacher education programs, or you might decide you want to go do something like a rural prac or gain a rural scholarship. So you might go out to somewhere, a more, I suppose, country university. So there's so many options for you to pick from. It is really important to note that while you cover obviously lots of subject content as well as teacher pedagogy within your degree, you don't necessarily need to have studied history in high school to become a history teacher, for example. If you just thought you liked history, that's not a prerequisite for getting into studying a history teacher. You would just do it at university. So once you find the right course for you and you're sure that's the one you want to go for, you check that it's accredited or that it's recognised by NESA. And then the next step is apply to study. So you'll need to follow obviously the enrolment process as outlined by your tertiary institution, which is what the admissions guide is going to help you with. Some course providers accept applications directly, but most of them will require you to apply through an external process, so such as using UAC. So finally, a very important step is to apply for any of the scholarships which are offered by the department that you might be eligible for. I wish that I knew in my first year of studying that I could have been getting scholarship support throughout the whole 4 years of my teaching degree, because I think my degree would have been a little bit different or a little bit better for me if I had known all of that detail. So because of the important role that teachers do have in education and in the future as well, the department is really committed to making sure that that students in New South Wales public schools are supported throughout their schooling by really high quality teachers. So in order to do that, there needs to be a few requirements to make sure that the future teachers hold all of those skills to be high quality teachers for the rest of their careers. So the first step obviously is completing your HSC. So you'll need to make sure you have that to pursue a teaching degree. There are some sort of specifications about bands that need to be achieved. So you will need to get 3 band 5s to enter an initial teacher program. You'll need to make sure that one of those is in English, and then you want to make sure that you can get a band 4 in mathematics to enter a course at university. So then complete your teacher education studies at whichever university you decide for. Finally, when you're in the final year of your teacher education degree, you can apply for your approval to teach with the New South Wales Department of Education. So this will allow you to begin working as a casual teacher. So as I said before, you can go and start working in schools straight away and earn yourself almost $400 a day in your pocket to help you while you're studying. So these are the high demand subject areas that I mentioned before. So they are definitely something to consider when you're thinking about the type of teacher that you would like to become. So it's really important to note the high employment prospects and also the scholarship opportunities that I mentioned before. This is because they're in short supply across New South Wales and Australia, to be honest. But they do change. They do change. So they don't remain the same high demand subject areas. So for right now, there is mathematics teachers is a big one. We have science teachers who are approved to teach physics in really high demand. So if you're interested in teaching science, as I said before, or having qualifications to teach physics is going to offer you really high employment opportunities. So meaning you might have more choice at the type of school that you would like to go to, or selecting one that it might be your highest preference. So TAS teachers, TAS is obviously very, very broad. There are lots of subjects in technological and applied studies. Teachers can select agriculture, you can do industrial technology, design and technology, there's engineering, food technology, software design, there's lots of subjects within TAS. And usually you need to make sure that you are approved to teach design and technology, and it has to be in combination with either engineering studies or industrial technology, because they're the most high demand subjects. So if you wanted to do something like software design because you really like that at school, you just have to make sure that it's with something like industrial technology, just to make sure that that is a really high demand subject area. So inclusive or special education teachers are qualified to teach students from kindergarten to year 12 who have additional learning support needs. So they develop and deliver specialised learning programs for students who have a range of physical and or intellectual disabilities. So that can be something that you could pursue if you particularly have an interest in that, because we're in such short supply. There is also, and this has been a relatively new program, but this is for school counselling. So school counsellors are qualified teachers, whether they're primary or secondary, it doesn't matter. You can choose to do something like counselling afterwards. So once you had, if you had a qualification in something like school counselling or in psychology specifically, it then makes you eligible for full registration as a psychologist in New South Wales. School counsellors work with students of all ages, so you would have one in your school whether you've seen them or not. They do an enormous amount of good for the school, and they provide that the psychological assessment that students need that teachers really can't. So if you're interested in teaching as a career and you're open to ideas for different subject areas you could teach in, I'd encourage you to consider becoming qualified in one of these areas. It sounds like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but the opportunities that are offered to teachers who go out there and select a high demand subject area really are endless. So that being said, obviously you can pick whatever you want. The New South Wales Department of Education, it needs incredible teachers across all key learning areas. We need good English teachers and history teachers. And if there is another key learning area that you would like to specialise or teach in, we can encourage you to pursue whichever path you would like to. So I will talk a little bit about our scholarships, but I'll direct you to where you can find more information that might be specifically applicable to you. So as I mentioned earlier, we have this enormous range of them to go. So if you're currently in Year 12 now and you're thinking about being a teacher, you should apply for a scholarship this year to commence study at university in 2023. So if you're already thinking, I know I'm going to go and do a teacher education degree in 2023, our scholarships come out, remember, in the middle of the year every year. So in June or July this year, you should apply this year. So you are a Year 12 student who is going to be a future teacher, and you would apply for one of our future teacher scholarships. If you're unsuccessful in your first application, that's completely fine. You can just keep applying the following year once you have commenced your teaching degree. So sometimes, for example, if there was a high amount of applicants who were already in university and were studying to be teachers, they might win out over a Year 12 student, for example, and then we would want to make sure that the next year, once you're in university, you get that chance again. But that being said, there are a lot of scholarships on offer, and I would definitely encourage you to apply. You can also apply for however many you are eligible for. So if you go onto our website and you see that there are three scholarships, and you are eligible for all three, then you should apply for all three. Scholarships are really an amazing way to kickstart your career. Because of all of the benefits that they do offer, so the financial support while you're studying, or the appointment allowances, or the guaranteed permanent teaching position, all of those things are really going to contribute to your success at university, which is what we care about. So 2022 scholarships haven't opened yet, as I said. I can't show you, therefore, exactly what this year is going to offer yet in terms of the scholarships, because they're not out yet. The campaigns aren't out yet. But I am going to show you the 2021 offerings because it's going to give you a pretty good idea. There is a QR code on each of the slides if you wanted to follow along or link through to them so you can find out when they open midway. So last year, the teacher education scholarships supported teachers who were studying in those high demand subject areas that I said before. So we've got the maths, the physics, the TAS, inclusive of special education. There was also a new one last year, which was English in combination with a history. So that was either modern history or an ancient history. So either one of those. And that's not to say that it might not be different. It might be English in combination with another HISI subject, for example, geography. So there are a number of these scholarships that are offered on every year. So I don't want you to think as well that there's only one scholarship and you're fighting everyone to get in, because that's absolutely not the case. There are a handful of them to go out every year. So this one, you can see you get $7,500 per year of full-time study. So if you apply for it while you're in Year 12 and you are successful for the next 4 years of your study, you will get $7,500 every year. So that's why I tell you, definitely apply while you're still studying if you know that future teaching is something that you're interested in. Once you finish, you can get an appointment allowance of $6,000. So once you get appointed to a school, the department will give you $6,000 to help you go and set up your new life, wherever that is. And you'll also get your guaranteed permanent position upon successful completion of your degree. So it's just one less thing to worry about because you know you'll be walking into a permanent job straight away. It's not something you'll need to apply for. The teacher education scholarship for Aboriginal students is also, it's the same scholarship, but it's for identified Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islanders. So this scholarship is the same in terms of what it attracts. So $7,500 a year, a $6,000 appointment allowance, and also a guaranteed permanent position. It is really important to note as well that you can also apply for the other one. So if you do identify as an Aboriginal person or Torres Strait Islander, you can apply for any of our scholarships. It's just that this one is specifically for identified persons. So the teach.Rural scholarship is a really great option for you if you are thinking about going out and working somewhere in a rural or remote location. So there are lots of country towns all over New South Wales that have a really actually high population of young teachers who go out and work there, who start a family there or decide they like it so much and they never leave. So this is a really good one for you if you are thinking about becoming a teacher that is not identified in that teacher education scholarship, so not one of those high demand subject areas. So if you wanted to be a legal studies teacher, for example, and it's not identified, you could go for something like this because it doesn't specify what the subjects are. So recipients of this scholarship, as I said, you can train in any area. It can be a primary or in a secondary as well. So it's a really great, broad, sweeping one, and there's lots of them to give out. Some of the benefits in terms of the financial benefits, at least, for this one are incredible. The list of incentives. So basically, $50,000 gets contributed toward your course contribution payments. So it ultimately reduces the amount of money that you would have to pay for your HECS. You also get $7,500 per year of full-time study, just like the other one. You also get a $6,000 appointment allowance. So meaning when you finish and you get your job and you've got to move out to Broken Hill, the department will give you $6,000 to help you move out there. You can also get $500 per week when completing a practicum in a rural or a remote school. So if you, once you get into university, you will need to do practicum placements. Every university does them a little bit differently, but in general, it's a period of time where you will go and work in a school and you do not get paid for that time. It is work experience. So if you wanted to, if you were successful in a scholarship like this, you could go out and do it in somewhere like in a rural location, and we would give you $500 a week. There's also lots of benefits, like the school often puts up students, so accommodation wouldn't have to be something you would have to worry about. You could go out there, have a great experience, save lots of money because you're getting paid by the department every week, and then come back and finish your degree. So you also get a guaranteed permanent position when you finish as well. And also to keep in mind with those guaranteed positions, the department would never send you out somewhere where you didn't want to go, or you didn't want to live. You put in a system of preferences. So you would select where you want to go, and the department would be able to place you somewhere where you had preferred. So your approval to teach, there are a couple of different aspects to cover here. So regardless of whether you are a program participant or you're a scholarship winner, in order to teach in a New South Wales public school, you do need to complete the approval to teach process. So this process basically commences in the final 2 semesters of your university degree, and it will allow you to teach casually prior to graduation, as I've spoken about before. So it's important to note that you will need to maintain a credit average throughout your university studies to be eligible for an approval to teach. So you also need to complete a land-type test. You might have heard of the literacy and numeracy test for initial teacher education students. It's essentially a 2-part test that you will do in order to be able to teach, which tests a little bit about literacy and a little bit about numeracy, which most of it you use a calculator for, and at the most of it is multiple choice as well. When you complete the land-type test, it's very different depending on which university you go to. So obviously you'll need to confirm the requirements there. So some may require you to sit the test as a part of a course entry requirement, or they might do it as a part of one particular course. They might do it at the end of that course, for example, but essentially you just need to do it before you graduate. So you'll need to check with your university. So finally, I would encourage you all to consider how to maximise your employment prospects following your graduation. I know that probably seems like a long time in the future, but it is very important to plan ahead and make sure that you are set up for success. So work on building and maintaining connections with the schools. That's a really, really important one. So completing your professional experience placements at schools, you want to stay in contact with them, and you want to be able to put your hand up and ask if anyone needs some help on their playground duty, or if anyone wants some help setting up the netball courts for PE in the last period of the day on a hot Friday. You want to be able to stand out and then stay in contact with them. So that's going to be really beneficial to making sure that once you finish your degree and you're thinking, okay, what now? Where am I going to work? That you can call out that school and say, hey, it's me. Just so you know, I'm finished my degree. Have you got any work for me? And it's a really great way to just get your foot in the door, is stay in connection with those schools. So make the most out of all of your practicum experiences. So as I said, just get involved wherever you can. There also might be opportunities for you to work in a school prior to completing your degree as well. You can explore different locations and school settings across New South Wales. So some of the locations in rural and remote, it probably seems like they're probably very, very remote, but that's not really the case. There are 133 schools in New South Wales that you can go and work at as a part of this program. So that some of them are only an hour away or an hour and a half away from really big town centres. So don't think that it's out somewhere where you're not going to have phone reception, because a lot of them are just going to expand your experience as a teacher. Apply for scholarship opportunities. Obviously, that's one I keep harping on about because it's so good, and I will continue to do that. And completing your approval to teach. So once you're in your final semesters, remember you can apply for your approval to teach and already go out as a casual teacher and get paid to teach. So how you're going to do this is you are going to download yourself the Class Cover app, and you're going to make yourself a Class Cover profile. So once you have your interim casual number from NSW, you are going to be able to enter those details, enter the details of your teaching graduate program, and then you can start selecting your preferred schools. So you might live in a particular area and there might be 3 high schools that are around you, but only 2 of them you'd be willing to work at for whatever reason you don't want to work in the third one. You can select those schools as your preferences and let that school know that you can be contacted for cover, and it just comes through the app and you select it. It's a very simple process. So then when you are done, you have successfully completed the requirements of approval to teach, you've finished your degree, you can begin applying for advertised positions. So every single Wednesday, all the jobs that are available in New South Wales, whether they are temporary or whether they are permanent, you will see them in what we call Job Feed, which is essentially a newsletter that lists all of the jobs and shows you where you can apply as well. All of these ads are going to have things like what kind of skills you need and what type of experiences you need, because you'll be first year out and you won't have lots of experience yet. You want to be able to rely on what you have done in your practicum placements. So that's why I say to you, get involved every single way that you possibly can to make sure that once you get to that kind of final stage and you're ready to apply for a job, you can say, I helped at the swimming carnival, I know how to run a parent-teacher night, I know how to do this, I know how to do that, because you have just done it on a practicum placement. Yes, they do. So in order for you to be able to go out into schools, you will need to apply for a Working with Children check. So you do that through the New South Wales Office of the Children's Guardian. Once you do your first placements, you will be able to apply for a volunteer one of those. But in order to get your approval to teach, to get paid to work in a school, it's a little bit different. So you will upgrade your Working with Children check clearance to make sure that it is for paid. And then once you've got that, you can go ahead and get your approval to teach. Okay, so a master's program is not essential to becoming a teacher. So it depends on which university you go to and how they structure their particular degree. So, for example, the University of Newcastle offers a dual degree style where you're doing a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Teaching at the same time. So, for 4 years, you are learning both of them at the same time, whereas a university like the University of Western Sydney structures it that you would do your Bachelor of Arts first for 3 years, and then they tack on a Master of Teaching on the end, and you would do your master's degree for 18 months on the end of that. So every university or every institution is ultimately different, but you do not need a master's in order to teach. You only need an undergraduate degree in order to get your approval to teach. They can. So once you gain your approval to teach within New South Wales, you can go and teach in other states. So we have a team that deals with that specially. It's called Recruitment Beyond New South Wales, and they go through the entire process of how you go about that. But essentially, you just need your accreditation to be recognised by whichever state you are going to work in. So, if you are someone who is thinking that you do want to be a teacher and you're ready to pursue a teaching degree, but you're not quite sure what area it's going to be in, there are a couple of things that you can do. So, for example, if you are taking a secondary teaching degree, you will select a major area and a minor study area. So you might pick something as your major, like drama, because that was your favorite subject. That's currently your favorite subject at school. But you might pick something as a minor, something that might be a bit obscure or it might not go with it, for mathematics, for example. And even though those subjects, that's unlikely that you would teach both of those within a school, what you can do is start your arts degree by doing both of those subjects at the same time. And once you might have picked one or two methodologies, you can change it. It's absolutely okay. It depends on how your university structures the art side of its degree, but you essentially are just collecting units throughout. So if you, like me, thought you wanted to be a primary school teacher and did one semester of primary school teaching at university and realised that I wanted to be a high school teacher instead, I just swapped over to the high school degree, and lots of my units were able to come across for me, so I wasn't behind in any way. And then I got to pursue the career that I did actually want to pursue. So please don't feel like you have to make a decision now and that's your final decision and you will teach that forever. The other side of it is if you study something at university, for example, you study to be a modern history teacher because they were the courses that were available and they were interesting to you and that was your favourite subject while you were at school and that's what you wanted to do. Once you get out into a school and you start teaching full time, you might do something obscure that you didn't study at university. So they might ask you to teach Aboriginal studies or studies of religion, for example. And once you teach that subject for 2 years, you are automatically given that teaching code. So the approval to teach team will acknowledge that you have taught it for 2 years and therefore you are given that code. So it is something to think about as well. I think it's a little bit of peace of mind knowing that what you do at university, you can go out and get a job in that, but you can teach other subjects and other subject areas. And once you've taught them for a little while, you get given the accreditation for those as well. For myself, the thing that I love about teaching the most is challenging my students, but being challenged in return. So I know that might seem like it's daunting, but for me, the best thing every single day is facing my students, giving them, a really hard challenge, asking them something about the world beyond our classroom, or something about a social issue, or something that's happening in politics, and asking them about it and getting them to think about it, and them challenging me in return by asking me what I think about it, or if I can tell them how I came up to think about it on that particular day. So for me, it's that real authentic learning that isn't just out of a textbook or out of different books that you need to read out of, and it's just for the purposes of having an exam at the end. It's about what you can make students think about once they leave your classroom. So not thinking about homework, thinking about something brand new that they learned today just because of me. And I know it sounds crazy for a teacher to say, but one of my favorite things, and you probably hate them as students, is exams. So the reason why I like exams and assessment tasks so much is because if I gave my students that exact exam or that exact assessment task 3 months earlier, they wouldn't have been able to write anything down because they didn't know anything yet. And after I taught them every single day and structured it in a way that they enjoyed their learning and that they really knew and found out what the content was supposed to be. And then when they sit down and they write their exam or they submit their assessment task, everything that they wrote is because of me. And I think there aren't very many jobs where you can have such a broad reach like that, teaching 60 students history or 90 students history and watching them all writing an essay because of what I taught them and how I taught them how to write an essay. I think that is very, very cool. And there aren't very many professions where people will always remember you, whether you taught them 5 years ago or 20 years ago or last year. They will always come up to you and remember your name and remember what you taught. And that's a very, very cool thing. So that's probably all the time I have for now. Thank you so much for listening to this recording. If you'd like to scan any of those QR codes on the screen, they'll basically send you to either our social media pages, which we post all the updates for scholarships. You'll also be able to find all the information for future teachers. So if you hover over that fourth QR code, the last one there, that will take you to our website. So follow the Get Paid to Study link if you want to get paid to study. Thank you so much and good luck with the rest of your studies.